It's starting to feel like the OWN network just can't let go of Melody Shari. No matter how far the show Love and Marriage Huntsville tries to move on, no matter how many new storylines they push, or how much time has passed since Melody officially distanced herself from the chaos, OWN still finds a way to circle right back to her name, her pain, and her past with Martell Holt. And honestly, it's becoming embarrassing at this point. Recently, fans scrolling through YouTube were stunned to see a thumbnail pop up from the official OWN channel, a thumbnail featuring Melody and Martell, front and center, looking like it came straight from the early days of the show. At first glance, people assumed it was just an old clip resurfacing, but the shock came when they looked closely and saw that this video was uploaded a day ago, not months, not years ago, just one day before. The video was titled something along the lines of Biggest Fights, Part 1, and the image screamed tension, heartbreak, and drama, everything that defined Melody and Martell's most painful moments. Now, let's pause right there. Melody has long since walked away from that energy. She's rebuilt her peace, focused on her family, and continued growing her brand beyond Huntsville. And yet, here comes OWN, digging back through the archives, pulling together clips of the most traumatic moments of her marriage and turning them into another piece of entertainment. And for what? To remind people of how explosive things once were? To get clicks from old drama? To prove they can still get attention off Melody's name even when she's not filming with them anymore? As soon as viewers noticed it, the confusion set in. People were asking, why would OWN put something like this together now? What's the point? And before anyone could even really get into the comments to discuss it, the video suddenly went private. Just like that. Gone. No explanation, no statement, just vanished from public view. That's when even more questions started flying, because clearly someone inside OWN realized they messed up. It makes you wonder, who thought this was a good idea in the first place? Who in that office looked around the table and said, let's stir up the past pain of one of our most talked about women, bring back the darkest moments of her marriage, and call it content? Whoever made that decision clearly doesn't understand the weight of what they're playing with. Because when you put something like that out there, a compilation of the biggest fights between Melody and Martell, you're not just reminding viewers of some dramatic television moments. You're revisiting a woman's real life. You're resurfacing her tears, her heartbreak, her trauma. You're turning something that nearly broke her spirit into YouTube entertainment. That's not just tacky, that's disrespectful. And let's be real, the timing of it all says everything. Melody's no longer a part of the show. She's out there living her life, building her businesses, and raising her kids. Yet somehow, OWN can't seem to move on. They're still relying on the energy that she brought to keep their numbers alive. What does that tell you about the current state of Love and Marriage Huntsville? It says that without Melody Shari, the show simply doesn't hit the same. The ratings don't move, the buzz doesn't build, and the drama doesn't feel authentic. That's what's really going on here. OWN is grasping at the past, holding on to the only thing that truly worked for them, and that's Melody. Her story carried emotion. Her pain carried ratings. Her growth brought viewers who believed in her strength. But now, instead of honoring her legacy or moving the franchise forward in a new direction, they're digging up old wounds for clicks. Fans immediately caught on to it. People in the comments were saying exactly what needed to be said, that this show is done, that OWN is trying too hard to revive something that has already run its course. And it's true. The spark that once made Love and Marriage Huntsville a hit has faded because the network refuses to evolve. They're still chasing what worked years ago instead of finding something fresh. It's almost as if OWN doesn't realize how bad it looks to keep repackaging old Melody and Martell fights like they're brand new content. It sends a message to the cast that's still on the show, a clear one. You're not enough. OWN is basically telling them we can't depend on your storylines to bring the energy. We have to go back to the past. That's insulting, not just to the cast, but to the audience too. When a network starts replaying old fights instead of promoting new growth, It's a sign that the creative team has run out of ideas. And when the audience sees that, they lose faith in the brand. Because people don't want to keep reliving someone's trauma over and over. They want evolution. They want stories that move forward. OWN decided to throw together a montage of the darkest chapters in Melody's marriage. A marriage that ended painfully, publicly, and permanently. They thought it would spark interest. But what it really did was expose how desperate things have gotten behind the scenes. It's also important to note how fast they took that video down. Clearly, someone high up realized that it crossed a line. Because once that thumbnail started circulating online, fans were not holding back. People were calling out the network for its lack of empathy, for using a black woman's pain as clickbait, for refusing to give her peace even years later, and they were right to call it out. OWN's social media once used to be sharp, strategic, and respectful. It used to understand its audience and the tone of the content it put out. But lately, it feels like something's shifted. The professionalism, the class, the awareness, it's all gone. It's getting messy. It's getting desperate. It's getting Zeus Network energy. Not the OWN that people once respected. Because let's be honest, putting out that compilation wasn't just a slip-up. It was a choice. Someone had to edit it, approve it, and publish it. That means multiple people looked at those clips of Melody crying, arguing, breaking down, and said, yes, this is good for engagement. And that's exactly what's wrong. When you start valuing engagement over integrity, you lose your audience's trust. OWN built its name on telling real, heartfelt stories. Stories about love, growth, and redemption. But now, they're playing with people's pain like it's nothing. And the craziest part? They had plenty of other options. They could have highlighted moments from the most recent season, something lighthearted, something that shows the current dynamics of the cast. But they didn't. They chose to go back to the beginning, back to Melody and Martel's fights, because they know that's the only eras that ever truly brought numbers in. And that's the sad truth. The message it sends is loud and clear. OWN knows that without Melody, Love and Marriage Huntsville just doesn't work. So instead of investing in new concepts, they're reaching into the vault, recycling pain, and pretending it's nostalgia. But viewers aren't fooled. They see the desperation. They see that the show doesn't carry the same spark it once did. And it's not because the cast isn't trying. It's because the foundation that made the show real is gone. When people think about Love and Marriage Huntsville, they think about Melody Shari, her grace, her strength, her transformation. They remember her standing tall through humiliation, betrayal, and heartbreak, and still rising. That's what made people connect. That's why viewers tuned in every week. It was her story that gave the show meaning. So when OWN turns around and uses that same story for cheap entertainment, it feels like a slap in the face. Not just to her, but to the fans who supported her. It's like saying, we don't care what she went through, we just care that it gave us ratings. And let's not forget, OWN has other projects they could have put their energy into. Heart and Hustle Houston, for example, had real potential. It brought a fresh cast, new energy, and strong storylines. But the network didn't push it the way they should have. They didn't give it the same marketing or support. Why? Because deep down, they were afraid that it might actually outshine Huntsville. They didn't want competition for their original franchise. But that's the irony. Heart and Hustle Houston is already a better show. The production feels cleaner, the cast feels more balanced, and the stories aren't drowning in recycled mess. Meanwhile, OWN keeps clinging to Love and Marriage Huntsville like a ship that's already sinking. They're trying to patch the holes with old drama, hoping that it'll float just a little longer. But everybody can see it. The viewers, the fans, the bloggers. The show has run its course. At this point, it's not even entertaining. It's just exhausting. Watching the network try to revive the ghost of what once was is painful. And watching them continue to disrespect the woman who built the show's legacy makes it worse. Melody doesn't owe them anything anymore. She gave her story, her truth, and her heart, and they're still trying to profit from it long after she's moved on. And for the cast that's still there, this should be a wake-up call. Owen basically told them, "You're not carrying this show. We need to go back to the original fire." That's a harsh reality, but it's the truth. Because if the network believed in their current storylines, they wouldn't have gone back to the past. They wouldn't have needed to pull footage from seasons ago. This whole situation shows how disconnected OWN has become from its audience. Viewers today want more than chaos. They want authenticity. They want to see people evolve. But OWN thinks that by replaying the old fights between Melody and Martel, they'll somehow reignite interest. They won't. They'll just remind people of how toxic it used to be, and how far Melody has come since she left. And that's what makes this whole thing so sad, because Melody has outgrown all of this. She's not sitting around fighting for screen time or trying to prove a point. She's in a new chapter of her life. She's at peace. And OWN's attempt to drag her name back into old drama just proves that they're the ones who haven't moved on. If OWN really wanted to honor what Love and Marriage Huntsville meant to viewers, they'd let it end gracefully. They'd celebrate what it once was, not exploit what it used to be. But instead, they're doing what too many networks do when the numbers start slipping. They go low. They chase shock value. The truth is, this show no longer has the magic it once had. Without Melody's leadership, her composure and her genuine story, it's just noise. And OWN knows it. That's why they keep going back to the archives. They're trying to squeeze the last bit of life out of a story that's already finished. OWN still has that melody playing in their system, and they can't detox from it. They can't move forward because they're addicted to the buzz that her name used to bring. But addiction never ends well. Eventually, the audience moves on too, and when they do, ONW will be left holding on to memories of what once worked instead of building something new that actually connects. Until then, they'll keep trying to replay the past. But the truth is, you can't recreate authenticity. You can't manufacture the kind of energy that comes from real pain and real growth. And you definitely can't keep exploiting the woman who gave your network one of its biggest hits and expect the audience to respect you for it. OWN may have made that video private, but the message is already public. They're desperate, they're uninspired, and they're still hooked on Melody Shari. And as long as they keep making choices like this, they'll keep reminding everyone of one undeniable fact. The show isn't what it used to be, and it never will be again.